When Michael Jordan walked into his own sneaker store on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, he never imagined what would happen next. He wasn't dressed like a superstar that day. No fancy suit, no bodyguards. Just a simple black hoodie, old jeans, and reading glasses. He looked like any regular person trying to escape the rain. But what happened in the next few minutes would change everything. The store manager took one look at him and made a terrible decision. She didn't recognize the greatest basketball player of all time standing right in front of her. All she saw was someone she thought didn't belong in her expensive store. Within minutes, security guards were called. Michael Jordan was being escorted to the door of his own store. As he stood at the exit, rain pouring outside, he turned around and said something that made everyone freeze. "I'll be back in 9 minutes. Have everyone meet in the break room." The manager laughed. She actually laughed at Michael Jordan. She had no idea that those 9 minutes would become the most important 9 minutes of her career. Because when Michael came back, he wasn't alone. And what he did next shocked everyone in that building. People lost their jobs that day. Lives were changed forever. But something else happened too. Something that would transform an entire community and prove that second chances are real. What did Michael Jordan discover when he walked into his store that day? Why did he fire almost everyone? And who got to stay? Watch this entire video to find out how one moment of disrespect led to a revolution that changed everything. Because what happened next? You won't believe it. The rain hammered against the glass storefront of Jordan's legacy, the flagship sneaker store on Trade Street in Charlotte, North Carolina. Inside, the gleaming displays of Air Jordans glowed under perfect lighting. Rows of sneakers arranged like precious jewels, each pair telling a story of basketball greatness. Michael Jordan pushed through the heavy door, water dripping from his black hoodie. He kept his head down, reading glasses perched on his nose, looking like any other customer seeking shelter from the storm. No security detail, no announcement, just a man wanting to see his own legacy through fresh eyes. He'd been getting complaints. Sales were down. Customer reviews mentioned something that made his stomach turn. People feeling unwelcome. People being judged. So he came to see for himself. Michael approached a display of vintage Air Jordan 1s, the Chicago colorway, the shoe that started everything. He picked one up carefully, turning it in his hands, remembering the day he first wore them on the court. "Sir!" A sharp voice cut through the quiet store. "Those are display only. Please don't handle the merchandise." Michael looked up. A woman in her early 30s stood before him, arms crossed. Her name tag read, Vanessa Holloway, store manager. Her eyes scanned him from head to toe, lingering on his worn sneakers and rain-soaked clothes. Her expression said everything. "You don't belong here." "I'm interested in buying them," Michael said quietly, placing the shoe back gently. "Can you tell me about their history?" Vanessa's jaw tightened. "They're $450. Display only means exactly that, don't touch." She glanced toward the security desk, where 2 guards sat watching monitors. "I understand they're valuable," Michael continued, his voice patient. "I'd actually like to talk to someone about how the store operates. I have some questions about—" "Look," Vanessa interrupted, stepping closer. Her voice dropped to a harsh whisper. "I don't know what you're trying to do here, but this isn't a museum. If you're not buying anything, I need you to leave." A young employee, his name tag read Marcus, looked over from where he was organizing boxes. His eyes widened slightly as he studied Michael's face. Something flickered in his expression, recognition dancing at the edge of his mind. But Vanessa shot him a warning glare. "Ma'am, I'm a paying customer," Michael said calmly. "I have every right to be here." "Do you?" Vanessa's voice rose slightly. Several other customers turned to watch. "Because you've been in here for 5 minutes, dripping water everywhere, touching expensive merchandise, and you haven't shown any intention of actually purchasing anything." The disrespect stung, not because of who he was, but because of what it revealed. This was exactly what the complaints had described. This was the rot at the heart of his store. "Tony, James," Vanessa called to the security guards. "Please escort this gentleman out." The 2 guards approached reluctantly. Even they seemed uncertain. "Ma'am, are you sure?" one guard began. "Now," Vanessa commanded. Michael didn't resist. He let them guide him toward the door, his mind already calculating, already planning. As he reached the threshold, rain visible beyond the glass, he stopped and turned back. His eyes met Vanessa's. She wore a smug smile, proud of herself for protecting the store. "I'll be back in 9 minutes," Michael said, his voice carrying across the entire store. "Have everyone gather in the break room, all staff members. 9 minutes." Vanessa laughed, a sharp, mocking sound. "Sure thing, buddy. We'll be waiting with bells on." The door closed behind him. Thunder rumbled overhead. Inside, Marcus felt his heart racing. Those eyes, that voice, that calm certainty. No, he thought. It couldn't be. The clock on the wall ticked forward. 8 minutes and 53 seconds remaining. 3 months earlier, Vanessa Holloway sat across from the regional director in the store's back office, her resume spread between them like a winning hand of cards. Single mother of 2 boys, ages 6 and 8. Worked her way up from part-time sales associate at a department store to assistant manager in just 14 months. Hungry, driven, perfect. "Why do you want this position?" the director asked. Vanessa leaned forward. "Because I understand luxury retail. It's not about selling shoes. It's about protecting the brand. You need someone who knows how to spot the serious buyers from the people just wasting our time." She got the job. Within weeks, Vanessa had transformed the store. Sales improved initially. She ran a tight ship, inventory was perfect, displays were immaculate, and the numbers looked good on paper. But something else changed too, something that didn't show up in spreadsheets. The warmth disappeared. 2 months earlier, Marcus Pettigrew bounced nervously in the interview chair, his worn notebook clutched in his hands. At 19, he was a sophomore at UNC Charlotte, studying sports management. His dorm room walls were covered with Michael Jordan posters, the iconic dunk from the free throw line, the championship-winning shot against Utah, the flu game. "Why Jordan's legacy?" Vanessa asked, barely looking up from her phone. Marcus's eyes lit up. "Because Michael Jordan isn't just a basketball player. He's the definition of excellence. 6 championships, 5 MVPs. He scored 32,192 points in his career. But more than that, he proved that greatness comes from outworking everyone else. Every single shoe in this store represents that legacy, and I want to share that story with customers." Vanessa finally looked at him. "Can you work weekends?" "Yes, ma'am, absolutely." "You're hired, 20 hours a week. Don't be late." Marcus became the store's encyclopedia, able to recite the release date and story behind every Jordan model. But Vanessa quickly made it clear. Knowledge was less important than reading the room, her code for profiling customers. "See that guy?" she'd whisper. "Backpack, hoodie, looking around too much, watch him." Marcus felt sick every time, but he needed this job. Student loans didn't pay themselves. 6 weeks. Earlier, Elena Kowalski's hands shook slightly as she filled out the application. At 45, she was older than most retail applicants, and her heavy Polish accent made every interview feel like an uphill battle. She'd been in America for 3 years, working 2 jobs, morning shift at a hotel, evening shift wherever she could find one. "Your English is challenging," Vanessa said during the interview, making no effort to hide her skepticism. "Customer service requires clear communication." "I work hard," Elena replied, her accent thick but her determination thicker. "I learn fast. I need this job. My mother is sick in Poland. I send money for medicine." Vanessa sighed. "Fine. Stockroom and cleaning duties. Minimum hours. We'll see how it goes." Elena took it without complaint. Every paycheck she sent half to Krakow for her mother's treatments. She arrived early, stayed late, never complained, even when Vanessa made comments about her accent in front of customers, even when she was given the worst shifts. Her co-workers barely knew her name. 5 weeks earlier, Jamal Richardson's interview was a formality. He'd worked at another high-end sneaker boutique for 3 years and came with stellar references. Smooth talker, good closer, understood the culture. Vanessa saw him as her lieutenant. "I need an assistant manager who gets it," Vanessa told him on his first day. "Someone who understands that our customer base is exclusive, We're not a bargain outlet. We cater to serious collectors, people with taste and means. Jamal nodded along. He knew what she really meant. He'd heard it before at his last job, and he'd learned that fighting it only got you fired. Better to play along, collect the paycheck, and not make waves. I've got your back, he promised. And he did. When Vanessa made decisions that felt wrong, following certain customers more closely, suggesting others might prefer a different kind of store, Jamal stayed silent. He told himself it wasn't his problem. He told himself he was just doing his job. Deep down, he knew better. 4 weeks earlier, Brittany Chen walked into her interview with a portfolio showcasing her fashion merchandising degree from Parsons. At 22, she'd already interned at Nike headquarters and had ideas for reimagining retail spaces as community hubs. She was brilliant, creative, and passionate about sneaker culture as art. I see retail as storytelling, Brittany explained, showing Vanessa her designs. Each shoe is a chapter. The customer is the protagonist. We should be creating experiences, not just transactions. Vanessa flipped through the portfolio with barely concealed boredom. That's very artistic. But we need someone who can follow the existing system. Can you do that? Brittany hesitated, then nodded. She needed experience. She needed a foot in the door. Within a week, she realized her mistake. Every creative suggestion was shot down. Every idea for community engagement was dismissed as not on brand. When she proposed a local youth basketball team sponsorship, Vanessa laughed. We're not a charity, Brittany. We're a luxury retailer. Brittany drafted 3 formal complaints to corporate about the store's discriminatory atmosphere. She documented incidents where customers were profiled based on appearance. She used proper channels, following procedures exactly. Each complaint was acknowledged and filed. Nothing changed. Brittany stopped complaining. Fear became her constant companion. Fear of being labeled a troublemaker, fear of losing her first real job, fear of failure. Present day, 8 minutes remaining. Vanessa gathered the staff in the main showroom, her triumphant smile still plastered across her face. Marcus, Elena, Jamal, and Brittany stood in a semicircle, confused. What just happened? Brittany whispered. I just threw out some scammer trying to get over on us, Vanessa announced proudly. Probably was going to claim we damaged his property or discriminated against him. I've seen it 1,000 times. You have to be vigilant. Marcus's stomach churned. That man's face haunted him. The calm in his eyes. The quiet dignity even while being escorted out. What did he look like? Marcus asked, his voice tight. Does it matter? Vanessa waved dismissively. Hoodie, glasses, wet clothes. Clearly not our demographic. Elena stood near the back, silent as always. She'd watched the whole thing. She'd felt the familiar sting of judgment, remembering her own first day when Vanessa had looked at her the same way. But she'd said nothing then. And she said nothing now. Jamal checked his phone, avoiding eye contact with everyone. The door chimed. A young black teenager entered, backpack on his shoulders, eyes bright with excitement. He moved toward the display of retro Jordans, and Vanessa's expression immediately shifted. Can I help you find something? She asked, appearing at his shoulder within seconds. The kid jumped slightly. No, ma'am, just looking. These are quite expensive, Vanessa said, her tone pleasant but her positioning aggressive. She stood between him and the shoes. The outlet mall has more affordable options. The teenager's face fell. Marcus watched it happen, watched hope die in a kid's eyes, and felt ashamed that he was witnessing it from behind a counter, complicit by his silence. The boy left without another word. Outside, through the rain-streaked windows, 3 black SUVs pulled up to the curb. 7 minutes had passed. Michael Jordan sat in the backseat of his Range Rover, rain creating rivers down the windshield. His phone was already at his ear before the door fully closed. Linda, it's me, he said quietly. Yes, I just confirmed it. It's worse than the report suggested. His corporate director of operations, Linda Martinez, had been with his brand for 15 years. She'd seen him angry before, but never like this. Never this cold, controlled fury. How bad? she asked. I was profiled, dismissed, and physically removed from my own store, Michael said, his jaw tight. But that's not even the worst part. While I was waiting, I watched them do the same thing to a kid, a teenager who just wanted to look at shoes. Silence on the other end. Then, what do you need? Everyone, 9 minutes. I want the regional VP, legal counsel, and HR director at that location in 9 minutes. Michael, it's Tuesday afternoon. They're scattered across… Linda? His voice carried the same intensity he'd once used in fourth quarter huddles. 9 minutes. Make it happen. He ended the call and immediately dialed again. James? I need you to pull all security footage from the Charlotte store for the last 90 days. Everything. Focus on customer interactions, staff behavior, anyone being followed or asked to leave. Another call. Get me the customer complaint file for that location. Every single review, email, and phone call from the past 6 months. One more. I want the staff files, all of them. Background, hiring interviews, performance reviews, everything. Michael sat back, removed his reading glasses, and closed his eyes. His mother's voice echoed from decades past, from a day when he was 17 and a store clerk had followed them through a department store, assuming they were there to steal. Michael, baby, don't you ever, and I mean ever, let someone else's judgment define your worth, she'd told him afterward, tears in her eyes but steel in her voice. But also remember this feeling. Remember it so that when you have power, you use it to make sure nobody else's child feels this way. He'd carried that lesson through every championship, every endorsement deal, every business venture. Success wasn't just about winning. It was about what you did with the platform winning gave you. His phone buzzed. Linda? Everyone will be there in 8 minutes. I'm 3 minutes out myself. Michael allowed himself a small smile. This was why he'd built the team he had. Inside the store, 5 minutes remaining. Marcus couldn't focus. He stood at the register, pretending to organize receipts, but his mind was racing through every Michael Jordan interview he'd ever watched, every documentary, every photograph. The height was right, 6'6". The build, even under that hoodie. The hands, large, with long fingers, the kind that could palm a basketball like an orange. And those eyes. Even behind reading glasses, they'd carried weight. The look of someone who'd seen everything and forgotten nothing. You okay? Brittany appeared beside him, her voice low. You look like you've seen a ghost. That man, Marcus whispered. The one Vanessa threw out. Did you get a good look at him? Brittany shook her head. I was in the back doing inventory. Why? I think… Marcus swallowed hard. I think it might have been him, like actually him. Him who? Michael Jordan. Brittany laughed, then stopped when she saw Marcus's face. You're serious? I know every picture of that man ever taken. I know how he moves, how he stands, and that guy… Marcus ran his hand over his face. What if Vanessa just threw Michael Jordan out of his own store? That's impossible, Brittany said, but her voice wavered. He would have said something. He would have… Would he? Marcus interrupted. What if he wanted to see how we really operate? What if this was a test? Across the store, Vanessa was lecturing Elena about proper window display angles, oblivious to the growing dread spreading through her staff. Jamal stood near the door, scrolling through his phone, when he glanced up and froze. Vanessa? His voice cracked slightly. What? She snapped, not looking up. Why are there 3 black SUVs parked outside with people in suits getting out? Now Vanessa looked. Through the rain, figures emerged from the vehicles, men and women in business attire, moving with purpose toward the store entrance. Leading them was a tall woman with gray-streaked hair, carrying a leather portfolio. Probably corporate shopping or something, Vanessa said, but uncertainty crept into her voice. Everyone looked sharp. Elena moved to the back, her heart pounding. She'd learned long ago that when authority figures arrived, it was best to become invisible. In Poland, that instinct had kept her safe. Here, it had become a prison. 3 minutes remaining. Michael stepped out of his Range Rover. The rain had lightened to a drizzle. He'd removed the hoodie, revealing a crisp white shirt and tailored blazer. The reading glasses were gone. There was no hiding now. Linda Martinez reached him first, slightly out of breath. Regional VP is here, legal is here, HR director is pulling up now. What's the play? The truth, Michael said simply. I'm going to tell them exactly what happened and let them see who they've become. Are you firing everyone? Linda asked carefully. Michael paused, watching through the window as the staff scrambled into formation, preparing for what they assumed was a routine corporate visit. I haven't decided yet, he admitted, but I'm going to find out who they really are. Some people make mistakes, some people are complicit, and some people, he thought of the teenager's face, are victims of a toxic system who are too scared to speak up. And the manager? She's done, Michael said flatly. That's not a question. The legal counsel, a sharp-eyed man named Richard Torres, approached with an iPad. I've got the preliminary footage pulled up. You want to see it before you go in? Michael shook his head. I lived it. I don't need to see it, but I want it ready to show them. James Chen, the HR director, jogged up, slightly damp from the rain. Staff files are loaded on my tablet. Everyone's history is here. Good. Michael looked at his team. These people who dropped everything to be here, who understood that this moment mattered more than whatever meetings they'd been in. Remember, we're not here to humiliate anyone. We're here to understand how this happened and make sure it never happens again. Linda nodded. And if they don't get it? Michael's expression hardened. Then they don't belong in my house. 1 minute. Remaining inside, Vanessa had positioned everyone perfectly. Marcus at the register, looking professional. Elena restocking shelves, staying busy. Brittany arranging a display, showcasing her merchandising skills. Jamal at her side, ready to greet whoever entered. Smile, everyone, Vanessa commanded. Corporate visits are opportunities to shine. Marcus's hands trembled slightly. He pulled out his phone and quickly Googled, Michael Jordan Charlotte today. Nothing came up. He tried Michael Jordan North Carolina. Still, nothing definitive. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe paranoia and guilt were making him see things that weren't there. The door chimed. Linda Martinez entered first, her presence commanding immediate attention. Then Richard Torres, then James Chen, and then Michael Jordan walked through the door. Time seemed to stop. Vanessa's face went from confident to confused to pale recognition in the span of 3 seconds. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Marcus felt his knees go weak. He'd been right. Elena dropped the shoebox she was holding. It hit the floor with a dull thud that echoed through the sudden, suffocating silence. Brittany's hand flew to her mouth. Jamal's phone clattered onto the counter. Michael Jordan stood in the center of his store, water still glistening on his shoulders, and the air crackled with the weight of what was about to happen. Everyone, he said, his voice calm but carrying the authority of 6 championships and a lifetime of excellence. Break room, now. Vanessa finally found her voice, words tumbling out in a desperate rush. Mr. Jordan, I didn't recognize you. I'm so sorry. If I had known... Michael raised one hand, and she fell silent. 9 minutes ago, I told you I'd be back, he said, his eyes moving across each face. I keep my promises. Break room, all of you. Now. They moved like ghosts, shuffling toward the back of the store. Marcus felt like he was walking to his own execution. Elena whispered a prayer in Polish. Brittany's mind raced through every employment law she could remember. Jamal couldn't look at anyone, and Vanessa, for the first time in her 18 months as manager, felt genuinely afraid. The clock on the wall showed exactly 9 minutes had passed since Michael Jordan had been thrown out of his own store. Now came the reckoning. The break room had never felt so small. 5 staff members lined up against the wall like defendants, awaiting sentencing. Michael Jordan stood before them, flanked by Linda Martinez, Richard Torres, and James Chen. The corporate team remained silent, their expressions unreadable. Michael didn't sit. He paced slowly, methodically, his presence filling every corner of the cramped space. A water-stained poster on the wall read, "Excellence is not a destination, it's a journey." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. "I'm not here for apologies," Michael began. his voice quiet but carrying the weight of undeniable authority. I'm here because for the last 6 months, I've been receiving reports about this store, declining sales, customer complaints, bad reviews. But it wasn't the numbers that brought me here today. He stopped pacing and turned to face them directly. It was the words, made to feel unwelcome, followed around the store, treated like a criminal, assumed I couldn't afford anything. Those words appeared again and again in your reviews, and I needed to know if they were true. Vanessa opened her mouth, but Michael's gaze silenced her before she could speak. So I came here, dressed like a regular person, to experience what your customers experience. And you know what I found? His voice remained steady, but something fierce burned beneath the surface. I found out that every single complaint was accurate. Richard Torres opened his laptop and turned it toward the staff. Security footage began playing on the screen, the teenager from earlier being shadowed by Vanessa, an elderly Asian man from last week being asked repeatedly if he needed help finding the outlet mall. A Hispanic woman with her 3 children followed from display to display as if she might steal something. Elena's hand covered her mouth as she watched herself in one clip, standing in the background, witnessing everything, doing nothing. This footage represents just a sample, Michael continued. We have 90 days of it, 90 days of patterns, 90 days of judgment, 90 days of my brand being used as a weapon to make people feel small. Marcus felt tears burning his eyes. Seeing it compiled like this, seeing the evidence of what he'd allowed to happen, was unbearable. You didn't fail because you didn't recognize me, Michael said, his voice hardening. You failed because you forgot what this store represents, what my name represents, what those shoes on the wall represent. He pointed toward the showroom, where countless sneakers stood in perfect rows, each pair a testament to hard work, determination, and overcoming impossible odds. I came from nothing, a kid from North Carolina who was cut from his high school basketball team. I was told I wasn't good enough, wasn't tall enough, didn't have what it took. And I spent every single day of my life proving those judgments wrong. Not for revenge, but to show that greatness lives in unexpected places. That you can't measure someone's worth by their appearance, their clothes, or their circumstances. Vanessa's legs began to shake. She leaned against the wall for support. Every person who walks through that door is worthy of respect, Michael continued. The kid saving his allowance for months to buy his first pair of Jordans. The grandmother bringing her grandson for his birthday. The immigrant working 3 jobs who wants something that represents the American dream. They all deserve better than what you gave them. James Chen stepped forward, tablet in hand. Let's talk about specific incidents, he said, his tone professional but cold. November 15th. A young woman named Keisha Williams filed a complaint stating she was asked for ID before trying on shoes, while 3 white customers before her were not. Ms. Holloway, you were the manager on duty. What happened? Vanessa's mouth opened and closed. I don't remember that specific. October 23rd, James continued. A man named Roberto Sanchez reported that staff suggested he might prefer something more in his price range before he'd even asked about any specific shoe. He was wearing a work uniform. He was a trauma surgeon coming off a 12-hour shift. He had a credit card with a $50,000 limit. Mr. Richardson, that was you. Jamal's face went ashen. I was just trying to help him find... Help him? Michael's voice cut through the excuse. You assumed a man in scrubs couldn't afford shoes. Do you understand what you did? You didn't just lose a sale. You told a doctor who saves lives every day that he wasn't good enough for a pair of sneakers. The room felt like it was shrinking, walls pressing in from all sides. September 12th, James went on. An email to corporate from Brittany Chen, documenting discriminatory practices. October 1st, another email. October 20th, a third, all formally filed, all requesting intervention. Brittany's eyes widened. She hadn't known anyone had actually read those. Michael turned to her. You tried to change things. You used the proper channels. You did what you were supposed to do. He paused. Why did you stop? Brittany's voice came out as barely a whisper. Because nothing happened. Because I was scared. Because I needed this job and I thought... Her voice broke. I thought keeping quiet was better than getting fired. That's honest, Michael said, his tone softening slightly. That's fear talking. Fear is powerful. It makes us complicit in things we know are wrong. He turned to Marcus. I saw how you looked at me today. You recognized me, didn't you? Marcus nodded, unable to speak. But you didn't say anything. Why? Because… Marcus struggled to find words. Because I've been doing that for months, seeing things that were wrong, knowing they were wrong, and staying silent because I told myself I was just an employee, just a kid, just someone who needed to keep his head down and his mouth shut. His voice grew stronger, anger at himself bleeding through. That teenager today, he looked at those shoes the same way I did when I was his age, like they represented something bigger than footwear, like they were a symbol of what's possible. And I watched him leave with his head down, humiliated, and I did nothing. I'm as guilty as anyone here. Michael studied him for a long moment. That's the first real thing anyone has said since I walked in this room. He turned to Elena, who had been silent throughout, tears streaming down her face. You haven't said anything. Do you have something to say? Elena looked up, her accent thick with emotion. In my country, we have saying, the nail that sticks up gets hammered down. I come to America because I think is different. I think here, you can speak up. You can stand for what is right. But I learned quickly. Speaking up means losing job. Losing job means my mother doesn't get medicine, doesn't get treatment. So I stay quiet. I watch bad things happen, and I stay quiet. And I hate myself every day for it. She wiped her eyes roughly. You want to know what I think, Mr. Jordan? I think I am coward. I think fear made me into a person I don't recognize. I came to America for dignity, for chance at better life, and instead I lose my dignity one silent moment at a time. The room fell into heavy silence. Even Linda Martinez, who'd been through countless difficult corporate situations, looked moved. Michael took a deep breath. Vanessa, look at me. Vanessa slowly raised her eyes to meet his. You created this culture. You set the tone. You made the decisions that led us to this moment. You took my brand, everything I built, everything I stand for, and you used it to judge people, to make them feel less than, to protect some imaginary version of luxury that has nothing to do with excellence and everything to do with exclusion. His voice didn't rise, but the intensity built with each word. You didn't just fail as a manager, you betrayed the legacy those shoes represent. Every kid who was ever told they weren't good enough, every person who was ever judged by their appearance, every dreamer who was ever counted out, you became the person who told them they were right to doubt themselves. Vanessa began to cry, but Michael didn't stop. I don't care about your excuses. I don't care that you didn't recognize me. I care that you treated a human being with disrespect because you decided in 3 seconds that he didn't matter. That's not a mistake. That's who you chose to be. He turned to Linda. Ms. Holloway is terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort her out. She'll receive 2 weeks severance, nothing more. Vanessa's sobs grew louder, but no one moved to comfort her. James Chen gestured to the door. 2 security guards who'd been waiting outside entered. Wait, Vanessa gasped. Please, I have kids. I need this job. I'll change, I promise I'll… Your children deserve a mother who knows the difference between right and wrong, Michael said, his voice not unkind but absolutely firm. Use this moment to become that person, but you won't do it here. The guards led her toward the door. As she passed Marcus, she grabbed his arm. This isn't fair, she hissed. I was doing my job. I was protecting the brand. Marcus pulled away. No, he said quietly. You were protecting yourself. There's a difference. The door closed behind her. Michael turned back to the remaining 4 staff members. Jamal looked like he might pass out. Marcus stood straighter, as if preparing for his own sentence. Brittany had tears on her cheeks but met Michael's eyes. Elena continued to cry silently. Now, Michael said, and something shifted in his voice. I'm not finished, because Vanessa wasn't the only one responsible for what happened here. She created the culture, but you all allowed it to continue. You all made choices. He moved closer to Jamal. You knew better. You had authority as assistant manager. You could have stopped this. But you chose comfort over courage. You chose your paycheck over your principles. That makes you just as guilty. Jamal's voice cracked. I know, I'm sorry, I don't want your apology, Michael interrupted. I want to understand why. Why didn't you speak up? Jamal's face crumpled. Because I've been fired before for speaking up. Because I convinced myself that keeping quiet was smart, was strategic, was just playing the game. Because I was weak and I took the easy path. And I'm ashamed of who I became here. Michael stared at him for a long moment. Mr. Richardson, you're fired. Not because you made a mistake, but because you made a choice. Over and over, you chose wrong. And when you had power, real power to change things, you used it to protect yourself instead of others. That's not someone I can trust with my brand. Jamal nodded, tears streaming down his face. He walked to the door with his head down, not looking at anyone. 3 staff members remained. Michael sat down for the first time, his eyes moving between Marcus, Elena, and Brittany. The air felt different now, less like an execution and more like something else. Something unexpected. Here's what's going to happen next, Michael said, and for the first time since entering the break room, there was something other than anger in his voice. There was possibility. Michael Jordan leaned back in the plastic break room chair, his eyes moving deliberately from Marcus to Elena to Brittany. The 3 remaining staff members stood frozen, uncertain whether they were about to be fired or spared, whether this was mercy or just a slower execution. Sit down, Michael said. They hesitated, then pulled chairs from around the small table. The scraping of metal legs against linoleum echoed in the tense silence. They sat like students awaiting test results that would determine their entire future. Michael was quiet for a long moment, studying each of them. Linda Martinez remained standing near the door, tablet in hand. Richard Torres had closed his laptop. James Chen watched with the careful attention of someone taking mental notes for files that would be written later. I'm going to tell you a story, Michael began, his voice softer now, reflective. And I need you to really hear it. Not just listen. Hear it. He folded his hands on the table. I was 17 years old, junior year of high school. My mother had saved money for 8 months. 8 months to take me shopping for a good pair of shoes. Not sneakers, dress shoes. I had a job interview at a local grocery store, and she wanted me to look professional, to feel confident. Marcus leaned forward slightly, drawn in despite his fear. We walked into this store in Wilmington, North Carolina. Nice place. The kind of store where everything was behind glass and the carpet was so thick your feet sank into it. And the moment we walked in, this salesman, white guy, maybe 50 years old, he looked at us like we'd tracked mud onto his precious floor. Michael's jaw tightened at the memory. He followed us. Every step, every aisle. My mother tried to ignore it, keeping her head high, but I could see it hurt her. We finally found a pair of shoes, black leather Oxfords, $85, which might as well have been $850 to us back then. My mother asked to see them in my size. He paused, the weight of decades-old shame still visible in his expression. That salesman looked at her purse, old, worn, held together with a safety pin, and he said, "Ma'am, these might be out of your price range. We have a discount shoe store about 3 miles down the road. Might be more what you're looking for." Elena gasped softly. Brittany's hands clenched into fists. My mother didn't argue. She didn't make a scene. She opened that purse, pulled out 8 months of tips and overtime and skipped meals, and she counted out $85 in small bills, ones, fives, quarters in a Ziploc bag. She laid it all on that counter and said, "We'll take the shoes." Michael's voice grew quieter, more intense. That salesman had to count every single dollar, every single coin. And while he did, my mother looked at me and said something I've never forgotten. She said, "Michael, baby, that man didn't just judge our money. He tried to take away our dignity. Don't you ever, and I mean ever, let someone else's judgment define your worth. But also remember this feeling. Remember it so that when you have power, when you have success, you use it to make sure nobody else's child ever feels this way." The room was absolutely silent. Even the corporate executives seemed affected by the raw honesty of the moment. "I wore those shoes to that interview," Michael continued. "I got the job. I wore them to church every Sunday for 2 years until they literally fell apart. But more than that, I carried what happened that day with me through everything that came after. Every time someone told me I wasn't good enough, every time I got cut from a team, every time someone judged me, I remembered my mother's face in that store. And I remembered her words." He looked at each of them directly. "That's what those shoes out there represent. Every single pair. They're not just merchandise. They're not just expensive items to protect from the wrong kind of customer. They're symbols of every person who was ever underestimated. Every kid who was told they'd never amount to anything. Every dreamer who refused to accept someone else's judgment as their destiny." Marcus wiped his eyes quickly, trying to maintain composure. "So when I walked into my own store today and experienced the exact same thing my mother and I experienced 35 years ago, when I watched you do to a teenager what that salesman did to me, it wasn't just business. It was personal. It was a betrayal of everything I've tried to build." Michael stood, began pacing again. "But here's what I also know. That salesman? He was a product of his time, his environment, his own limitations. He probably went home that night and never thought about us again. He probably didn't even realize what he'd done, how much damage one moment of judgment can cause." He stopped, turning to face them. "Vanessa created a toxic culture here. She set expectations and standards that had nothing to do with excellence and everything to do with exclusion. But she didn't do it alone. She did it because you, all of you, let her." Brittany spoke up, her voice shaking but determined. "I tried to stop it. Those emails to corporate, I documented everything. I reported it through proper channels. I did what I was supposed to do." "I know," Michael said. "I've read every one of your emails. They were detailed, professional, and completely ignored by a corporate structure that failed you. That's on us. That's on me for not having better systems in place to hear voices like yours." He moved closer to her chair. "But here's my question, Brittany. After the third email went unanswered, what did you do?" Brittany's eyes dropped. "Nothing. I stopped trying." "Why?" "Because I was scared." The words burst out of her, raw and honest. "I was scared of being labeled a troublemaker, scared of losing my first real job, scared that speaking up would ruin my career before it even started. So I stopped. I kept my head down. I did what I was told. And I hated myself a little more every single day." Michael nodded slowly. "That's fear. Real, legitimate fear. The system failed you and fear became your prison. I understand that. But understanding it doesn't change what happened. Those customers still felt unwelcome. That teenager still left humiliated. Your silence, however justified by fear, still had consequences." Brittany nodded, tears flowing freely now. "I know. I'm so sorry." Michael turned to Marcus. "You didn't file any complaints. You didn't send any emails, but you knew. I could see it in your eyes today. You've known for a while that something was wrong here. So why didn't you speak up?" Marcus took a shaky breath. "Because I'm 19 years old. I'm a part-time employee working 20 hours a week. I'm nobody. Who would listen to me?" "You're a human being with eyes and a conscience," Michael countered. "That's not nobody." "But that's exactly how I felt." Marcus's voice rose with emotion. "Every day, I felt like nobody. Vanessa made it clear. We do things her way or we're gone. And I needed this job. Student loans are crushing me. My parents are helping as much as they can, but they're struggling too. This job was supposed to be my foot in the door of the industry I love. Sports management, sports marketing, this was my dream." He stood up, unable to contain his frustration anymore. "And instead, I spent every shift watching my dream turn into a nightmare. Watching people who look like me, who sound like me, who remind me of my own family, watching them get profiled, followed, dismissed. And I did nothing because I convinced myself I was powerless, that I was too young, too inexperienced, too disposable to matter." Marcus's voice broke. "That kid today, the one Vanessa sent away, he could have been me 5 years ago. He probably saved every dollar from mowing lawns and babysitting. He probably has a poster of you on his wall. He probably thinks of those shoes as more than shoes. And I let him walk out of here feeling worthless because I was too scared to risk my own comfort. He sat back down heavily, his head in his hands. I don't deserve your mercy, Mr. Jordan. I know what I did. I know what I didn't do. And I have to live with that. Michael studied him for a long moment. That's ownership. Real ownership. Not excuses, just honest acknowledgement of failure. That matters. Finally, he turned to Elena, who had been silent throughout, tears still streaming down her weathered face. Elena, you're the oldest person on this staff. You've lived more, experienced more. You came to this country seeking opportunity, seeking dignity. What do you have to say? Elena looked up, her accent thick but her words clear with emotion. Mr. Jordan, I have no excuse. In Poland, under communism, I learned to keep head down, to not make waves, to survive by being invisible. When I come to America, I think everything is different. I think here, truth matters, justice matters. Speaking up is protected. She wiped her face with trembling hands. But when I start working here, I see same thing as in Poland. Power protects power. Vanessa has power, I have none. She has connections. I have accent that makes people think I am stupid. She can fire me with one word, I can do nothing to her. Her voice grew stronger, pain transforming into something fiercer. So I do what I always do. I become invisible. I clean floors. I stock shelves. I work in back room where nobody sees me. And when I see wrong things happening, I tell myself is not my problem, is not my business. I am just worker, just immigrant, just old woman trying to send money to sick mother. Elena stood, her small frame somehow seeming larger. But truth is, Mr. Jordan, I am coward. I survive communism. I survive poverty. I survive coming to new country with nothing. But I do not survive my own fear. Every customer who is treated badly, I am responsible. Every person who leaves store feeling small, I help make them feel that way by my silence. She met his eyes directly. You want fire me? Is okay. I deserve it. But I need you know something. I understand now what I do. I understand that dignity I seek for myself, I must also fight for others. Even when is scary. Even when costs me something. Because dignity that comes from someone else's humiliation is not dignity at all. The break room fell silent again. Michael looked at Linda, who gave him a small nod. He looked at Richard and James, who remained professionally neutral. Then Michael did something unexpected. He sat back down and sighed deeply. You all just told me the truth. Real truth. Not the truth you thought I wanted to hear. The actual, painful, complicated truth about fear and complicity and failure. That's more than most people can do. That's the beginning of something. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Here's what I know about people. Some people do wrong things because they're bad people. They're cruel. They're malicious. They enjoy causing pain. Vanessa wasn't that. She was someone who convinced herself that judgment and exclusion were the same as protecting a brand. She was wrong, and she had to go. His voice shifted. But some people do wrong things because they're scared, because the system crushes them, because they've been taught that survival means silence. Those people aren't beyond redemption. Those people can change, if they choose to. Marcus looked up, hope flickering in his eyes for the first time. I'm not just firing people today, Michael said. I'm reimagining what this store represents. This location is going to become something different, something better. A community center that sells shoes. A place that invests in the neighborhood. A store that trains youth, that mentors, that gives back. A space where everyone, and I mean everyone, feels like they belong. Brittany's breath caught. Elena's eyes widened. It's going to be the hardest thing I've ever built, Michael continued. Harder than winning championships. Because changing culture, changing hearts, changing the way people see each other, that's the real work. That's the legacy that matters. He looked at the three of them. I'm giving each of you a choice, and this choice will define the rest of your careers, maybe the rest of your lives. The air crackled with tension and possibility. You can walk away right now. I'll give you generous severance packages, 4 months' salary. I'll give you excellent references that focus on your skills and potential. You can start fresh somewhere else, Somewhere without this weight. No judgment, no penalty, clean slate. He paused, letting that option sink in. Or, his voice dropped lower, more intense. You can stay. You can help me rebuild this from the ground up. But I need you to understand what that means. It means longer hours for the same pay, at least initially. It means being watched closely, being held to a higher standard than anywhere else you could work. It means proving every single day that you understand what we're building here. It means facing your failure and transforming it into purpose. Michael stood. It means being uncomfortable. It means being challenged. It means having your assumptions questioned and your blind spots exposed. It means working harder than you've ever worked for something that might fail, that might not make sense to other people, that might cost you more than it gives you back. His eyes burned with intensity. But it also means being part of something that matters. Something that changes lives. Something that proves redemption is real and second chances can be earned. It means taking your failure and turning it into fuel for transformation. Not just for yourself, but for every person who walks through that door. Linda Martinez stepped forward. You don't have to decide right now. You can take 24 hours to think about. No, Michael interrupted gently. They decide now. Because this isn't a decision you make with your head. It's a decision you make with your heart, and your heart already knows the answer. He looked at Marcus, Elena, and Brittany. So what's it going to be? Safety or purpose? Comfort or growth? Walking away or fighting for redemption? Before anyone could answer, the break room door burst open. A young black teenager stood in the doorway, water dripping from his jacket. Beside him stood a woman in her 40s, her expression a mixture of fury and pain. It was the boy from earlier, and he'd brought his mother. I want to speak to whoever's in charge, the mother said, her voice shaking with controlled rage. Because my son was discriminated against in this store less than an hour ago, and somebody is going to answer for it. She didn't recognize Michael Jordan standing right in front of her. Her eyes were focused solely on justice for her child. Everyone froze. The reckoning, it seemed, was far from over. The break room seemed to shrink. The mother, tall, dignified, wearing hospital scrubs with a name badge that read Patricia Monroe, RN, stood in the doorway with her hand protectively on her son's shoulder. The teenager kept his eyes down, embarrassment and hurt evident in every line of his body. Michael Jordan stepped forward, and something in his movement made Patricia finally look at him. Really look at him. Her eyes widened in recognition, but the anger didn't leave her face. If anything, it intensified. You're Michael Jordan, she said, her voice tight. This is your store, which means this happened under your name, under your brand. You're absolutely right, Michael said quietly, and I take full responsibility. Please come in. Tell me what happened. Patricia's jaw clenched. My son is Deshaun. He's 15 years old. He's on the honor roll. He plays point guard for his high school team, and he's been saving money for 6 months, to buy a pair of your shoes. Deshaun shifted uncomfortably, clearly wishing he could disappear. 6 months of mowing lawns in the summer heat, Patricia continued, her voice breaking slightly. 6 months of shoveling snow at 5 in the morning before school. 6 months of tutoring younger kids for $5 an hour. He had $300 in his backpack. $300 that represented every ounce of his hard work and dedication. Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. Elena covered her mouth, fresh tears spilling over. Brittany stared at Deshaun, seeing him clearly for the first time. And he came into this store that's supposed to represent excellence and achievement and overcoming obstacles. And your manager treated him like a criminal, Patricia said, her voice rising. She didn't ask what he was looking for. She didn't offer to help. She followed him around like he was going to steal something. And then she suggested that maybe he'd be more comfortable at the outlet mall. Patricia's hand trembled on her son's shoulder. Do you know what that means, Mr. Jordan? Do you know what message that sends to a black boy in America? That no matter how hard you work, no matter how much you achieve, someone will always look at you and see a threat instead of a customer. Someone will always assume you don't belong. The words hung in the air like an indictment. Deshaun finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're my hero, Mr. Jordan. I have your poster on my wall. I watch videos of your games when I need motivation. I read your quotes before every game I play. My dad left when I was 8, and my mom works double shifts at the hospital, and sometimes—" His voice cracked. "Sometimes those shoes felt like the only thing connecting me to something bigger than my neighborhood, bigger than my circumstances." He looked up, tears streaming down his face. "And today, in your store, I felt like nothing, like I was wrong for even dreaming I could be part of your legacy." The silence that followed was devastating. Michael Jordan, who had faced down the biggest challenges in basketball history, who had performed under unimaginable pressure, who had never backed down from anything. Michael Jordan had to take a moment to collect himself. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "Deshaun, look at me." The teenager slowly raised his eyes. "What happened to you today was wrong. It was inexcusable. And it never, ever should have happened. You deserve to be celebrated when you walked through that door. You deserve to have someone recognize the work you put in, the sacrifice you made, the dream you were chasing. And instead, my staff failed you. I failed you." Patricia started to interrupt, but Michael raised a hand gently. "I can't undo what happened. I can't take away the hurt or the humiliation. But I can tell you this. You are exactly the kind of person those shoes were made for. Not because of the money in your backpack, because of the heart in your chest. Because you understand what those shoes actually represent." He moved closer to Deshaun. "Can I tell you something about the first Air Jordans I ever wore?" Deshaun nodded, unable to speak. "The NBA banned them, said they didn't meet uniform regulations. They fined me $5,000 every single game I wore them. And you know what I did? I wore them anyway. Because those shoes weren't about following someone else's rules. They were about making a statement that excellence doesn't come from conforming. It comes from being authentically, unapologetically yourself, even when people tell you that you don't fit their idea of what belongs." Michael's voice grew stronger. "You belong in this store, Deshaun. You belong in this legacy. And anyone who made you feel otherwise doesn't understand what we're actually building here." He turned back to Marcus, Elena, and Brittany. "This is why I asked you to stay. This is the moment that defines everything. Deshaun and his mother didn't come here for an apology. They came here for accountability, for justice, for proof that their pain matters." Michael looked at Patricia. "I want to make this right. Not with money or free shoes, though Deshaun is absolutely leaving here with whatever shoes he wants, and you're not paying a single dollar. But that's not enough. That's just a transaction. I want to make this right in a way that matters, in a way that creates real change." Patricia studied him carefully, measuring his sincerity. "I'm listening." "I'm transforming this store," Michael explained. "It's going to become a community center, a mentorship program, a place that invests in young people like Deshaun. And I want Deshaun to be part of building it. I want him on a youth advisory board, paid position, where he helps design programs, chooses which community initiatives we support, makes sure we never forget what it feels like to be on the other side of judgment." Deshaun's eyes widened. Patricia's expression shifted from anger to cautious hope. "But I have one more ask," Michael continued, "and this one is for both of you. I need you to help me understand what I'm missing. What blind spots do I have? What systems need to change? What policies need to be rewritten? Because clearly the structure I had in place allowed this to happen. And I need voices like yours to make sure it never happens again." Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I have one condition, and if you don't agree, we walk out of here and you'll hear from our attorney." Michael nodded. "Name it." "You hire from the community first," Patricia said firmly. "People who look like us, people who've struggled like us, people who understand what it means to be underestimated, not as charity, not to check a box, but because they're the ones who actually understand your brand's real message. They're the ones who can make sure what happened to Deshaun never happens to anyone else." Michael didn't hesitate. "Done. That's not a condition. That's exactly what I should have been doing all along." Patricia studied him for another long moment, then slowly extended her hand. Michael shook it. And something shifted in the room. Not forgiveness exactly, but the beginning of something that could become trust. Deshaun spoke up suddenly. "Can I say something?" Everyone turned to him. "I don't want anyone to get fired because of me," he said quickly, looking at Marcus, Elena, and Brittany. "I mean, the manager lady who was rude. She should probably go. But the rest of you just looked scared. You looked like you wanted to help but didn't know how. And I know that feeling. I feel like that at school sometimes when I see something wrong happening, but I'm too scared to speak up because I don't want to be the target next." The wisdom in his words, the empathy from someone who had every right to be angry, struck everyone silent. "That's why the system matters more than individual people," Marcus said, speaking directly to Deshaun for the first time. "You're right. We were scared. But being scared isn't an excuse for letting something wrong continue. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that I saw what was happening and I didn't stand up for you." Elena stepped forward. "I also am sorry. In my country, I learned that staying silent keeps you safe. But today, I learned that staying silent makes you responsible. You deserve better than my silence." Brittany moved closer as well. "I filed complaints. I documented everything. But when nothing changed, I gave up. I let fear win. And you paid the price for my cowardice. I'm sorry, Deshaun. Truly." Deshaun looked at each of them, then at Michael. "So what happens now?" Michael turned to Marcus, Elena, and Brittany. "That's what these three are about to decide. I gave them a choice before you arrived. Walk away with severance and references, or stay and help rebuild this store into something that represents what we're actually supposed to stand for." He looked at each of them. "But now there's an additional element. If you stay, Deshaun and Patricia will be watching. The community will be watching. You'll be proving every day that second chances are earned, not given. That redemption is real, that people can change." Patricia added, "And if you stay and we see the same patterns, the same judgment, the same discrimination, there won't be a third chance. This is it. This is the moment you decide who you're going to be." The three staff members looked at each other, then at Deshaun, then at Michael. Marcus spoke first. "I'm staying, not because it's easy, not because I deserve another chance, but because that kid earlier today deserves to know that when he walks into this store next time, and I hope he does, someone will be here who remembers what we almost took from him. Someone who will make sure he feels like the king he actually is." He looked directly at Deshaun. "I can't undo what happened, but I can spend every day making sure it never happens again, if you'll let me." Deshaun nodded slowly. Elena stepped forward next. "I stay also. In Poland, I have saying, 'Not my circus, not my monkeys.' Means is not my problem. But I understand now. When we all live in same circus, when we all share same community, everything is everyone's problem. I am old. I am tired. But I am not too old or too tired to fight for what is right. For Deshaun, for all the people like him." She wiped her eyes. "And maybe, when my mother comes to America for treatment, she will see daughter who finally found her courage." Brittany was last. She looked at Patricia, then at Deshaun, then at Michael. "I've been running from discomfort my whole life. I ran from confrontation by filing paperwork instead of speaking up directly. I ran from consequences by going silent when my complaints were ignored. I even ran from this conversation by hoping someone else would make the hard decisions." She took a deep breath. "But I'm done running. I'm staying. And I'm going to use everything I learned in school, every creative idea that got shot down, every ounce of passion I've been suppressing. I'm going to pour it all into making this place what it should have been from the beginning, a place where everyone belongs, where everyone matters, where everyone gets treated like their dreams are valid." She looked at Deshaun. "Especially you. You and every kid like you. That's my promise." Michael nodded slowly, something like pride crossing his face. "Then we have work to do. All of us. Linda, James, Richard. I want new employment contracts drawn up by tomorrow. Marcus, you're the new assistant manager with the understanding that you're training to become store manager within 6 months. Elena, you're customer experience director. Your job is to make sure every single person feels welcomed. Brittany, you're creative director for community engagement. Design the programs. Build the partnerships. Make this store a center of the neighborhood." He turned to Patricia and Deshaun. And you two, you're our accountability partners. You come in whenever you want. You observe. You call out anything that doesn't feel right. You keep us honest. Because the moment we think we've arrived is the moment we start slipping back into old patterns. Patricia's expression softened for the first time. There's still the matter of my attorney. Michael smiled slightly. Call them off. Let's build something better than a lawsuit. Let's build a model for what retail can be when it actually serves the community instead of just extracting from it. Deshawn suddenly spoke up again. Mr. Jordan, can I ask you something? Anything. Why did you come to the store dressed like that? Like, regular? Michael's expression grew thoughtful. Because I needed to know the truth. And people don't tell the truth to Michael Jordan the celebrity. They tell the truth to Michael Jordan the person in a hoodie who they think can't afford their merchandise. I needed to see what my brand had become when nobody thought I was watching. He paused. And I needed to remember what it felt like. To be judged. To be dismissed. To be told I didn't belong. Because success has a way of making you forget. It insulates you. And if I forget what that feels like, I can't build something that actually prevents it from happening to others. Deshawn nodded slowly, processing this wisdom. Now, Michael said, looking at the entire group, let's talk about those shoes you came here for. What were you looking at? For the first time since entering the break room, Deshawn smiled. A real, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. The Air Jordan 1 Retro High, Chicago colorway, size 10. The originals, Michael said with approval. The ones that started everything. Good choice. Marcus, go get them. And while you're at it, bring 3 more pairs. The bread colorway, the royal blue, and whatever else calls to you, Deshawn. You came here with money for 1 pair. You're leaving with whatever speaks to your heart. Mr. Jordan, I can't, Patricia started. Yes, you can, Michael said gently. Because this isn't charity. This is honoring what Deshawn represents. This is honoring his work ethic, his dedication, his refusal to let one bad experience destroy his dreams. And honestly, it's the least I can do. Marcus practically ran from the break room, purpose in every step. Elena followed to help. Brittany pulled out her phone and started taking notes. She was already designing programs in her mind. Michael sat down with Deshawn and Patricia. Tell me about your game, he said to Deshawn. Point guard, your mother said? And for the next 10 minutes in that small break room in Charlotte, North Carolina, Michael Jordan talked basketball with a 15-year-old kid who had come seeking shoes but found something infinitely more valuable. He found proof that heroes could be human, that corporations could have souls, that mistakes could become moments of transformation. That belonging wasn't something you bought. It was something you built together, one choice at a time. Outside, the rain had stopped. Light was breaking through the clouds. Inside, something new was beginning. Marcus returned carrying 4 shoeboxes stacked in his arms like precious cargo. Elena followed with tissue paper and a bag embossed with the Jumpman logo. Their movements had changed. There was purpose now, intentionality in every gesture. Deshawn's eyes lit up as Marcus carefully opened the first box, revealing the Air Jordan 1 Retro High in the iconic Chicago colorway, red, black, and white leather gleaming under the fluorescent lights. May I? Marcus asked, and Deshawn nodded eagerly. What happened next was a masterclass in what retail should be. Marcus knelt down, measured Deshawn's foot properly, checked the fit, asked about comfort. He treated this 15-year-old boy with the same respect he would give a professional athlete or a corporate executive. Because now Marcus understood, respect wasn't about who someone was. It was about recognizing their humanity. How do they feel? Marcus asked. Deshawn stood, took a few steps, and his face broke into the widest smile anyone in that room had seen all day. They feel like, he searched for words, like I can do anything. That's the right answer, Michael said quietly. That's exactly what they should feel like. Patricia watched this interaction, her nurse's training helping her assess the authenticity of the moment. She'd seen plenty of performative gestures in her 43 years, empty apologies, hollow promises, people doing the right thing only when they were caught. But this felt different. This felt like actual transformation happening in real time. Michael stood and addressed the group. Before you leave, I need everyone to understand something. What happened here today? This isn't the end of the story. This is the beginning. And beginnings are fragile. They require constant attention, constant effort, constant recommitment to the principles we're establishing right now. He moved to the center of the room, his presence commanding but no longer intimidating. 6 months from now, when the cameras are gone and the initial excitement has faded, there will be a moment, maybe many moments, when falling back into old patterns will seem easier than maintaining new ones. A customer will come in who doesn't look like they belong. And you'll have to make a choice in that moment. Judge or welcome. Exclude or embrace. Brittany was furiously typing notes on her phone. What if we created accountability systems? Regular community feedback sessions? Mystery shoppers from the neighborhood? A comment system that goes directly to you, not just corporate channels that bury complaints. Exactly, Michael said, pointing at her. That's the thinking we need. Systems that make it impossible to slip backward. Elena, what would make you feel empowered to speak up if you saw something wrong? Elena thought carefully. Protection. In Poland, speaking up means losing everything. Here, I need to know that if I report problem, I am protected. My job is safe. My voice matters. Whistleblower protections written directly into your employment contract, Richard Torres said, making notes on his tablet. With guaranteed job security for anyone reporting discriminatory practices. I'll have it drafted by morning. James Chen added, and regular training. Not the standard corporate diversity modules that everyone clicks through without reading. Real training. Bring in people from the community to share their experiences. Make it personal. Make it impossible to ignore. Patricia had been quiet, watching this planning session unfold. Now she spoke up. You need more than training. You need representation at every level. It's not enough to have diverse staff if management is still making all the decisions. Deshawn's advisory board is a start, but you need community voices in actual positions of power. Agreed, Michael said. Linda, I want a complete restructuring of the management hierarchy. Every store needs a community liaison position, someone from the neighborhood who has direct authority over operations and reports directly to me, not through regional management. Linda nodded, already thinking through the logistics. That's going to require significant investment. New positions, new salary lines, complete reorganization of… I don't care what it costs, Michael interrupted. We can't put a price on doing the right thing. If this store becomes a model that other retailers follow, if we prove that community-centered business is not just ethical but profitable, then every dollar we invest here will return tenfold in the culture we create. Deshawn had been sitting quietly, taking everything in. Now he spoke up, his voice stronger than before. Mr. Jordan, can I tell you something? Of course. When I walked out of here earlier, I felt like I'd lost something, like a part of my dream died. I went home and told my mom I didn't even want the shoes anymore, that maybe I'd been stupid to think they meant anything. Patricia's hand found her son's shoulder again, squeezing gently. But now, Deshawn continued, I understand what they actually mean. They don't mean I'm better than anyone else. They mean I'm part of something bigger. They mean, when I wear these, I'm representing everyone who was told they weren't good enough. Everyone who had to fight twice as hard for half the recognition. Everyone who refused to let someone else's judgment become their reality. His voice grew passionate, mature beyond his 15 years. And that means when I see someone else getting treated the way I was treated today, I have to speak up, because now I know what silence costs. I know what happens when good people don't say anything. The room fell silent, the weight of his words settling over everyone. Michael Jordan, who had given countless interviews and speeches, who had inspired millions with his words, found himself genuinely moved by this teenager's wisdom. Deshawn, how would you feel about sharing that message, being a voice for other young people who feel excluded or judged? You mean like, speak at events or something? I mean, become a storyteller. We document this transformation, your story, this day, what happened and what changed. We create a video, a campaign, something that shows other young people that their voices matter. that speaking up creates change, that one person's courage can shift an entire culture. Patricia looked concerned. "I don't want my son exploited." "Neither do I," Michael assured her. "This would be completely on your terms." Deshaun controls his narrative. He decides what gets shared and what stays private. He gets compensated fairly. And most importantly, he gets support. Media training, mentorship, protection from any backlash. Because I know what it's like to be young and thrust into a spotlight you didn't ask for. Deshaun looked at his mother, a silent conversation passing between them. Patricia studied Michael's face one more time, looking for any hint of manipulation or ulterior motive. She found only sincerity. "We'll think about it," she said carefully. "This is a lot for a 15-year-old to process." "Of course," Michael agreed. "Take all the time you need. My number is in your phone now." Linda added it while we were talking. "Call me anytime, day or night. You have questions, concerns, ideas. I want to hear them." Marcus had been carefully placing all 4 pairs of shoes into a large bag, handling each box with reverence. "Deshaun, these are ready whenever you are, and I want to say something, if that's okay." Deshaun nodded. "I'm only 4 years older than you," Marcus began, his voice thick with emotion. 4 years. And I almost let fear turn me into someone I would have hated. Someone who would have treated you exactly the way you were treated, just to keep my job, just to avoid making waves. And that's pathetic." He held out the bag of shoes. "I can't take back what happened, but I can promise you that next time you come into this store, and I really hope you do, you'll be treated like family, because that's what you are now. You're part of this transformation. You're part of making sure what happened to you never happens to anyone else." Deshaun took the bag, its weight somehow both physical and symbolic. "Thank you," he said simply. Patricia stood, ready to leave, but then turned back to the group. "I want to be clear about something. What happened here today, this accountability, this commitment to change, this can't just be performance. My son and I are going to be watching. The community is going to be watching. And if this turns out to be just good PR, just a way to avoid a lawsuit and negative press, we will know, and we will speak up." "I would expect nothing less," Michael said. "In fact, I'm counting on it, because the only way this works is if we're constantly being held accountable, if we're never allowed to become comfortable or complacent, if people like you keep pushing us to be better." He walked Patricia and Deshaun toward the door, but before they left, he stopped. "Deshaun, one more thing. What position do you play?" "Point guard, your mother said?" "Yes, sir." "What's your biggest weakness right now?" "As a player?" Deshaun thought about it. "My left hand. I rely too much on my right. Coaches say it makes me predictable." Michael smiled. "I had the same problem when I was your age. My high school coach made me wear a sock over my right hand during practice for a month. Forced me to develop my left. I hated it at the time, but it made me unstoppable later." He paused. "Sometimes the thing that feels uncomfortable, that forces you to grow in ways you didn't expect. That's exactly what transforms you from good to great. What happened today was uncomfortable, painful. But if you let it, if you use it right, it could be the thing that transforms not just you, but everyone around you." Deshaun absorbed this, understanding that Michael wasn't just talking about basketball. "Come back next week," Michael added. "Same time. I want to see how those shoes are breaking in, and I want to hear your ideas for the Youth Advisory Board. Deal?" "Deal," Deshaun said, and this time his smile was genuine, unguarded. Patricia shook Michael's hand one final time. "Don't make me regret trusting you." "I won't," Michael promised. "Because I'm not just trying to rebuild a store. I'm trying to prove that second chances are real, that people can change, that corporations can have souls, and I need you to hold me to that." After they left, the remaining group stood in silence for a moment. The break room suddenly felt larger, emptier, but also full of possibility. "That kid is going to change the world," Brittany said quietly. "He already has," Elena replied. "He changed all of us today." Michael checked his watch. It was nearly 4 o'clock. 2 hours since he'd walked into the store in a hoodie. 2 hours that had upended everything and everyone. "We have a lot of work ahead of us," he said to the team. "This store closes at 8 tonight. Tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., we start rebuilding. New policies, new procedures, new culture. Are you ready for that?" Marcus, Elena, and Brittany looked at each other, then back at Michael. "Yes," they said in unison. "Good. Because the easy part is over. Saying you want to change is simple. Actually changing, that's where most people fail. That's where comfort becomes the enemy of growth. That's where good intentions die in the face of old habits." He moved toward the door, then turned back one final time. "I'm going to tell you what my mother told me 35 years ago in that shoe store in Wilmington. Remember this feeling. Remember this moment. Remember what it cost to get here and what it would cost to lose it. Because when you keep that memory alive, it becomes the thing that prevents you from ever becoming the person who inflicts that same pain on someone else." Linda, Richard, and James gathered their materials, already planning the enormous undertaking ahead. As the corporate team filed out, Linda paused next to Michael. "That was remarkable," she said quietly. "What you did here today, how you handled it, the grace you showed alongside the accountability." Michael shook his head. "It wasn't grace, it was necessity. Because if I had just fired everyone and walked away, nothing would have changed. The culture would have stayed toxic. The next manager would have replicated the same patterns. The only way to create real transformation is to give people the opportunity to transform themselves." "Not everyone deserves that opportunity," Linda observed. "No," Michael agreed. "But some do. And knowing the difference, that's the art of leadership." The store was eerily quiet now. Most of the staff who'd been working that day had been sent home, told that tomorrow would bring significant changes. Only Marcus, Elena, and Brittany remained, standing among the gleaming displays of shoes that now meant something different than they had that morning. "What do we do now?" Brittany asked. Michael smiled. Now you go home. You rest. You think about everything that happened today. And tomorrow, we start building something that's never existed before. A store that isn't just about selling shoes. A store that's about honoring every person's journey, every person's dream, every person's worth." He looked around at the space, the polished floors, the perfect lighting, the expensive inventory. This is all just stuff. Beautiful, meaningful stuff, but still just stuff. What we're building here is something you can't see or touch. We're building dignity. We're building belonging. We're building proof that when people are given genuine respect and opportunity, they become the best versions of themselves. Marcus spoke up. "Mr. Jordan, thank you. For not giving up on us. For seeing something worth saving." "I didn't save you," Michael corrected gently. "You saved yourselves. I just gave you the opportunity. What you do with it, that's all you." As the sun began to set over Charlotte, casting golden light through the storefront windows, Michael Jordan stood alone in his store for a moment. He thought about his mother, who'd passed away 10 years ago, but whose wisdom lived on in every decision he made. He thought about that salesman in Wilmington who probably never knew the impact of his judgment. He thought about Deshaun and every kid like him who just wanted to feel like they belonged. And he thought about the work ahead, the hard, uncomfortable, necessary work of changing hearts and systems and cultures. Tomorrow would bring challenges. Tomorrow would test everyone's commitment. Tomorrow would reveal whether today's promises could become sustained action. But for now, in this moment, change felt possible. Redemption felt real. And that was enough to begin. 6 months later, the morning sun broke over Charlotte, painting Trade Street in shades of amber and gold. The storefront that had once read Jordan's Legacy now displayed a new name in bold, elegant letters, the Legacy Center. Michael Jordan's car pulled up to the curb at 7:30 a.m., 30 minutes before opening. He wore jeans and a simple gray t-shirt. No hoodie this time, but still deliberately casual. Old habits, he'd learned, required constant vigilance. The moment you stopped checking yourself was the moment you stopped growing. The changes were visible before he even entered. The windows no longer displayed shoes like museum pieces behind glass. Instead, they showcased photographs, community members wearing Jordans at basketball courts, graduation ceremonies, job interviews, family celebrations. Each photo included a small caption telling their story. Maria, RN, worked 3 jobs to buy her first Jordans at 34. James, age 12, saved birthday money for 6 months. The Rodriguez family, Sunday tradition since 1985. Michael smiled. Brittany's work. She'd transformed the store's entire visual identity from aspirational luxury to accessible inspiration. He pushed through the door, the familiar chime sounding. Inside, the store had been completely reimagined. Half the retail space remained dedicated to shoes, but the back section had been converted into a community area. Tables and chairs where local students did homework after school, a small basketball court with adjustable hoops for kids, a wall covered with college acceptance letters and job offers from neighborhood youth. Marcus was already there, reviewing the day's schedule on a tablet. At 20, he looked different than he had 6 months ago. Confidence had replaced anxiety. Purpose had replaced fear. He wore a Legacy Center polo shirt with "Store Manager" embroidered on the chest, a promotion he'd earned after 3 months of proving himself daily. "Morning, Mr. Jordan," Marcus said, looking up. "Didn't expect you this early." "I like to see how things look when nobody's expecting me," Michael replied with a knowing smile. "Old habit. What's on the schedule today?" "Regular Tuesday. Store opens at 8. We've got the afternoon tutoring program starting at 3. Elena's leading that today. Youth Advisory Board meeting at 5. Deshawn's running it. And tonight at 7, we're hosting a job interview workshop for community members. Brittany brought in 3 HR professionals from local companies to do mock interviews." Michael nodded approvingly, walking through the space. Everything gleamed, but differently than before. The perfection wasn't sterile anymore, it was welcoming. Shoes were still displayed beautifully, but now customers could touch them, try them on, ask questions without feeling like they were disturbing sacred artifacts. "How were numbers last month?" Michael asked. Marcus's face lit up. "Up 34% from 6 months ago. But that's not even the best part. Our customer retention rate is at 89%. People who shop here once come back. They bring their families, they bring their friends. We're not just moving inventory anymore. We're building relationships." "That's what happens when people feel like they belong," Michael observed. "They become part of something. They invest in it because it's invested in them." The door chimed again. Elena entered, carrying grocery bags full of supplies for the afternoon tutoring session. At 45, she somehow looked younger than she had 6 months ago. Purpose, Michael had learned, was better than any anti-aging cream. "Good morning," Elena called out, her accent still thick but her English more confident. "Michael, you are here early. Is everything okay?" "Everything's perfect, Elena. I'm just checking in. How's your mother?" Elena's face transformed. "She is here, in Charlotte. The health insurance from my promotion, it covers her treatment. She arrives 3 weeks ago. Yesterday, she comes to store and cries. She says she never thinks she will live to see day her daughter manages customer experience at American company." Her voice wavered with emotion. "She says I finally find courage she always knows I have. She is very proud." "I'm proud too," Michael said simply. "You've built something remarkable here. Our customer satisfaction scores are the highest in the entire company. And you know why?" Elena shook her head. "Because you understand what it feels like to be invisible, to be dismissed, and you've made it your mission to ensure no one who walks through that door ever feels that way. That's not something you can teach. That's something you have to have lived." Elena wiped her eyes quickly, emotional as always. "I must set up for tutoring. The children, they arrive at 3 o'clock sharp. They are very punctual now. They know this is their space, they know they belong here." As she headed to the community area, Brittany rushed in, laptop bag over her shoulder, hair slightly disheveled, energy radiating off her like electricity. "Sorry I'm late," she said breathlessly. "I was meeting with the mayor's office. They want to use the Legacy Center as a model for a citywide initiative. Business community partnerships. They're calling it the Legacy Impact Program. 20 other businesses have already signed up." Michael raised his eyebrows. "That's significant." "It's revolutionary," Brittany corrected, her passion evident. "We're proving that community investment isn't charity, it's smart business. Our numbers are up, Our brand reputation has skyrocketed. We've been featured in 6 national publications. And most importantly, we're actually making a difference. Kids who come here for tutoring have increased their grades by an average of 15%. We've helped 12 people get jobs through our workshops. We've given out 23 scholarships. She pulled up data on her laptop. And look at this. Demographic breakdown of our customers 6 months ago versus now. We've gone from 72% customers in the highest income bracket to a complete cross-section of the community. Every income level, every background. Because everyone feels welcome now. Marcus joined them, adding, "The best part? Our average transaction value is actually higher than it was before. Because when people trust you, when they feel respected, they don't just buy one pair of shoes. They invest in the relationship. They buy for their whole family. They come back for every release." Michael leaned against the counter, taking it all in. This was what success actually looked like. Not just profit margins and sales figures, but human transformation. System transformation. "Where's the revenue from the new model going?" he asked. Brittany flipped to another screen. 30% goes back into community programs, scholarships, tutoring supplies, youth sports sponsorships. 30% goes to staff bonuses and professional development. We're investing in the people who made this possible. The remaining 40% is profit, but even that's being reinvested into expanding the model. We're opening 2 more legacy centers in the next year, one in Detroit, one in Houston. And each one will be managed by people from those communities, Marcus added. We're not imposing our model. We're adapting it to each neighborhood's specific needs. Elena's been training the Detroit Customer Experience Director. I'm going to Houston next month to help set up their systems. Michael felt something he rarely experienced, genuine awe at what others had built. You 3 have exceeded every expectation I had. We had a good teacher, Marcus said quietly. You showed us that second chances aren't just about forgiveness. They're about transformation. And transformation requires accountability. As if on cue, the door opened and Deshaun walked in. Now 16, noticeably taller, wearing the Chicago Air Jordan 1s from 6 months ago. They were beautifully worn in, creased at the toe box, slightly scuffed, evidence of a life being lived fully. Behind him came Patricia, still in hospital scrubs, grabbing a quick visit between shifts. Morning, everyone, Deshaun called out, his confidence a stark contrast to the humiliated teenager from 6 months prior. Mr. Jordan, didn't know you'd be here. We're ready for the advisory board meeting tonight. Got 3 new proposals. Tell me about them, Michael said, genuinely interested. Deshaun pulled out his own tablet, the one the Legacy Center had provided for his work. First proposal. Partner with the school district to create a Leadership Through Sports program. Use basketball as a vehicle to teach conflict resolution, team building, and community service. We'd run it here 3 nights a week. I love that, Brittany said immediately. I can help design the curriculum. Second proposal, Deshaun continued, create a sneaker authentication service. We teach young people how to spot fakes, how to understand value, how to build businesses in the secondary market, but ethically. Turn their passion for shoes into actual business skills. Marcus nodded enthusiastically. That would be huge, and it addresses a real need in the community. Third proposal, Deshaun finished, and this one's big, create a scholarship fund specifically for young people who've experienced discrimination. Not just financial aid, but holistic support. Mentorship, mental health resources, career guidance. We call it the Second Chances Scholarship. The room fell silent. Patricia's eyes glistened with tears. Michael studied Deshaun carefully. That third one, that's personal for you. Yes, sir, Deshaun admitted. Because 6 months ago, I almost let what happened here destroy my confidence. I almost let someone else's judgment become my reality. And I keep thinking about all the other kids who experienced that, but don't get a Michael Jordan showing up to make it right. They just shrink. They give up. They stop believing in themselves. His voice grew passionate. So I want to build something that catches them. That says, hey, what happened to you was wrong, but it doesn't define you. Here's support. Here's opportunity. Here's proof that your worth isn't determined by someone else's limited perspective. Michael looked at Patricia. You raised an extraordinary young man." "I know," Patricia said simply, pride evident in every syllable. "But this place helped him find his voice. You all did. And that's what makes this different from every other corporate community initiative I've seen. This isn't performative, this is real. This is sustained. This is accountable." She turned to address everyone. "6 months ago, I walked in here ready to sue, ready to expose, ready to burn it all down. And Michael said, 'Let's build something better than a lawsuit.' I didn't fully believe him. I thought it was damage control. But you've all proven me wrong. Every single day you've proven me wrong." Elena had finished setting up the tutoring area and rejoined the group. "Is true. I also not believe at first. I think this will last maybe 2 weeks, then everything goes back to how it was. But instead, it gets better. The commitment gets stronger. The accountability gets deeper. That's because we built systems," Brittany explained. "It's not just depending on people's good intentions. We have monthly community feedback sessions where anyone can voice concerns anonymously. We have oversight committees with actual power. We have performance metrics tied directly to community impact, not just sales. And we have Deshawn's advisory board with veto power over major decisions." "Veto power?" Michael asked, impressed. Deshawn nodded. "You gave us that authority last month. Said if the youth advisory board unanimously objects to something, it doesn't happen. It forces the store to consider how decisions impact young people, not just profit margins." "Have you used it?" "Once," Deshawn admitted. "There was a proposal to reduce tutoring space to make room for more retail inventory. We voted it down, explained that the tutoring program is what makes this store special, what builds community trust. Without it, we're just another retail space." "And we listened," Marcus added. "Found a different solution, more efficient inventory management, better use of vertical space, increased inventory capacity without reducing community space, better outcome for everyone." Michael smiled. This was exactly what he'd hoped for. Not him dictating from above, but a genuine ecosystem of voices all working toward shared values. The door chimed again. A family entered. Mother, father, 2 young children. They looked around with wide eyes, taking in the space. Marcus immediately approached, but his approach was different than it would have been 6 months ago. "Good morning. Welcome to the Legacy Center. Is this your first time visiting us?" The father nodded. "We saw the article in the Charlotte Observer about what this place is doing for the community. Wanted to see for ourselves." "Well, you're welcome here," Marcus said warmly. "I'm Marcus, the store manager. These are my colleagues Elena, Brittany, and Deshawn. And this," he gestured to Michael, "is Mr. Jordan." The family's eyes widened with recognition, but Marcus didn't make a big deal of it. He'd learned that from Michael, presence without performance. "We're looking for shoes for our son," the mother explained. "He's starting middle school next month. He's been saving his allowance." Elena immediately knelt down to the boy's level. "What is your name?" "Trevor," the boy said shyly. "Trevor, that is strong name," Elena said with a warm smile. "You save money yourself? That is very responsible. You should be proud. Your parents must be very proud also." The boy beamed. The parents relaxed. In 30 seconds, Elena had transformed nervous customers into welcomed guests. Michael watched the interaction from a distance, his heart full. This was it. This was the legacy that mattered. Not the shoes, not the sales figures, not even the community programs, though those were all important. The real legacy was this: human beings treating other human beings with dignity. Every time, without exception, regardless of appearance or circumstance. As Marcus helped Trevor find the perfect shoes, Michael quietly slipped toward the back office. Patricia noticed and followed. "You're leaving without saying goodbye?" she asked. "I don't want to disrupt the flow," Michael explained. "They don't need me here. That's how I know it's working, when my presence isn't required for things to function properly." Patricia leaned against the doorframe. "Can I tell you something?" "Always." 6 months ago, when you made all those promises about transformation, about accountability, about building something different, I was maybe 60% convinced. I wanted to believe you, but I've seen too many false starts. Too many broken promises from powerful people who say the right things but don't follow through. She paused, choosing her words carefully. But you've done something I didn't think was possible. You've proven that corporations can have souls, that profit and purpose aren't mutually exclusive, that accountability isn't just a buzzword, it's a practice. It's not just me, Michael said. It's them. Marcus, Elena, Brittany, Deshawn, they're the ones doing the daily work. I just created the conditions for them to succeed. That's leadership, Patricia observed. Real leadership. Not taking credit, but creating space for others to shine. My son talks about you constantly, but he doesn't just talk about your basketball career. He talks about the day you sat in that break room and gave people a choice. The day you showed that second chances are real, but they have to be earned. She smiled. He's writing his college essay about that day, about how witnessing accountability and transformation showed him what integrity actually looks like. Not perfection, accountability, not never making mistakes, but owning them and doing the work to change. Michael felt his throat tighten with emotion. That kid is going to change the world. He already is, Patricia said. Because of this place, because of what you built here. From the main floor, they could hear laughter, Trevor excitedly showing his parents the shoes he'd chosen, Marcus explaining the return policy, Elena offering to check if they needed anything else, Brittany inviting them to the community events calendar. I have to get to the hospital, Patricia said, checking her watch. But thank you. For everything. For proving me wrong in the best possible way. After she left, Michael stood alone in the back office for a moment. On the wall, Brittany had mounted a framed photograph from that day 6 months ago, not of the confrontation, but of the aftermath. Michael, Marcus, Elena, Brittany, Deshawn, and Patricia all standing together in front of the store. The caption read, "The day we chose transformation over comfort. August 28th, 2025. His phone buzzed. Linda Martinez. Detroit location secured. Houston location confirmed. Board approved expanding the Legacy Center model to 15 stores over the next 3 years. Your mother would be so proud." Michael read the message twice. His mother. The woman who'd counted out $85 in small bills and quarters to buy her son dignity. The woman who'd taught him that success without purpose was just accumulation. He typed back, "She already knew. She taught me that real wealth isn't what you have. It's what you give away. Real power isn't what you can take. It's what you can transform." As he prepared to leave through the back door, he heard the front door chime one more time. Curious, he peeked around the corner. An elderly man entered, wearing work boots and a paint-stained jacket. He looked around nervously, clearly uncomfortable in the gleaming space. Marcus approached immediately. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to the Legacy Center." The man hesitated. I'm probably in the wrong place. I was just walking by and saw the photos in the window. They reminded me of my grandson." "Would you like to tell me about him?" Marcus asked, and there was such genuine interest in his voice that the man's shoulders relaxed. "He plays basketball. He's good. Real good. But his shoes..." The man trailed off, embarrassed. "His shoes got holes in them. We don't have much money, but I thought maybe I could find something here. But this place looks expensive, and I don't want to waste anyone's time if I can't afford..." "Sir," Marcus interrupted gently, "you're not wasting anyone's time. You're exactly the person we're here to serve. Let's see what we can do. What's your grandson's name?" As Marcus guided the elderly man toward the youth section, explaining the community scholarship fund and payment plans, Michael felt tears prick his eyes. This was why it all mattered. He slipped out the back door into the Charlotte morning. The city was waking up, people heading to work, to school, to whatever their day held. And in this one corner of Charlotte, on Trade Street, something impossible was happening. People were changing. Systems were changing. Culture was changing. One conversation at a time, one customer at a time, one choice at a time. Michael Jordan got into his car and sat for a moment before starting the engine. He pulled out his phone and opened his photos, scrolling to a picture of his mother from 1982, standing in front of that shoe store in Wilmington. Dignity and determination in every line of her face. "We did it, Mom," he whispered. We turned that pain into purpose. We made sure other people's children never have to feel what I felt that day. We built something that lasts. He started the car and pulled away from the Legacy Center, but he wasn't leaving it behind. It would continue without him, growing and evolving and adapting, because it was built on principles, not personality. Built on systems, not saviors. Built on the collective commitment of people who chose transformation over comfort. As he drove through Charlotte, past neighborhoods that reminded him of where he'd grown up, past schools where kids dreamed of being more than their circumstances, past courts where future champions practiced their craft, Michael Jordan smiled. The shoes had taken him far. 6 championships, global icon, business empire, Hall of Fame. But this, the Legacy Center, the people it served, the lives it transformed, this was the legacy that mattered most. Not the shoes themselves, but what they represented. Proof that greatness lives in unexpected places. That worth isn't determined by appearance or circumstance. That everyone deserves dignity, respect, and the chance to chase their dreams. That belonging isn't something you buy. It's something you build. Together. One choice at a time. The Legacy Center model expanded to 47 stores across America over the next 5 years. Each location adapted to its community's specific needs while maintaining core principles: dignity, accessibility, accountability, and transformation. Marcus became the youngest regional director in company history at age 24. Elena's mother fully recovered and now volunteers at the Legacy Center teaching English to new immigrants. Brittany's community engagement model was adopted by dozens of retail chains nationwide. Deshaun received a full scholarship to Duke University, where he's studying social entrepreneurship while still serving on the Legacy Center's National Advisory Board. And Michael Jordan never again walked into one of his stores without being recognized. Not because of his fame, but because every store now displays that photograph from August 28, 2025, with the caption, "The day we chose transformation over comfort." Because that's what legacy actually means. Not what you achieved, but what you enabled others to become. So where are you watching this from? Drop your city and country in the comments below. We'd love to know where our amazing viewers are from around the world. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that everyone deserves respect and kindness, please hit that like button right now. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so we can keep spreading these powerful messages of hope and transformation together. Remember, one small act of kindness can change someone's entire life. So let's spread that message everywhere we go. Now click on that video appearing on your screen right now for another incredible story you won't want to miss. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.